Hi guys, this is Shahid. Welcome back to my tutorials on the basics of web development. In the previous lecture, we have learned some basic stuff about HTML. Today we will learn some basics of CSS. So in order to do that, we will have to first open our project, which we have done in the previous lecture. So let's just go to Visual Studio Code and open my folder of web development basics. So this is what we have coded in the previous lesson. We have learned how to add titles. We have learned how to add H1, which is headings. We have learned how to add paragraphs, how to add images, how to add tables, and how to add references. So today we will learn how to add style to our HTML file. So let me first just tell you what are the types of style sheets. So the first type of adding the style sheet is just adding the style tag here. So we can just add the style tag here, and everything between this starting and ending tag will have the CSS, which will belong to this whole HTML file. This type of embedding style sheet is called internal style sheet. One other type of adding style is that I can just add a style attribute here, and whatever I add here in this part will belong to this element only. So for example, if I just say background and I say red, so only background of this H1 will turn to red because this is only added to this H1 tag. One other type of adding CSS is external style sheet, which I can add a link to. So first I will have to add a style sheet in my project. I will call it style.css. So its extension is CSS, which is called cascade style sheet. So in order to add this CSS to our HTML file, we will just add a link here. So link rel is equal to style sheet, and we will say type is equal to text by CSS and href hyperreference. So href is in the current folder. We have a style.css file. So this say in the current folder where this HTML file exists, there is another file which is called style.css. So we have added its reference to our file. This type of adding CSS is called external style sheet. So everything we add here, every style that we add here will belong to this HTML file. So let me just open the project in the browser first. In order to just open it, first let me open the project tutorials, web development basics, and index.html. I will say open it in Google Chrome, and I will just say add the Google Chrome to this side and the Visual Studio Code here. So we can just say how to add the style. So I have added the reference to my style sheet here. So I will just close this. I can add some styling here. So for example, I want to add style for this whole HTML file. I will write HTML and those curly braces. So everything between the starting and ending curly brace will belong to this specific selector, which is HTML. So I can add background black, right? So if we take a look here and I save the file and I refresh this page, you will see my background has turned to black for the whole file, right? So for example, I just want to do it for only H1. What I will have to do, I will just say H1. So only this background for this H1 will be changed to black. So you can see this is our H1 and its background is black now. So for example, if you want to turn the text color to white, what we will have to do, we will just add color white. So this color say that this is some font color, and this background represents the background of this specific selector. So when I save it, I refresh this file, you see that I have turned the text color to white. So one more thing that I want to mention about the CSS is the selectors. So selectors is actually how we select and how we tell the CSS what we have to add style to. So for example, this h1 here, so for example, if I have multiple h1 here, for example, I am nobody, right, and I just refresh this page, so it will be added to every h1 on the page, right? So if I want to add it specifically to some element, I will have to add an ID here. For example, h1 ID is equal to bunny heading, right? So this ID belongs to this specific h1. So if I want to add style for this ID, I just have to say hash. So this hash tells this CSS that this is an ID. So we have a prefix of hash before the ID. So when I refresh this, you will see that it is only added to the bunny one, right? And there is one more thing that we say is a class, right? So if we don't want to add something for a specific element, we have to add a class to it. For example, I say that this I just create a class. I just create a class of background black, right? So this dot represents that this is a class, right? So if I say just background black and I say background black, so just change the background black of every element which has this class, right? So just I have to add this class is equal to background black, right? And I add it to paragraph background black. You will see that it will change those backgrounds for the tags that we have added class to, right? So a dot represents a class and a hash represents an ID, right? ID is only for single elements and class is for multiple elements. So let me just tell some basic things about the CSS, which is we can play with different things. For example, I just want to play with this h1, so I will just say heading bunny. We don't have to add a hash here. We will add this hash here and we just have to change it to heading bunny. So only background of the heading bunny will be changed to black. So this is, I've added class, we will have to change this to ID, so it will have this black color. I can add text colors, white. I can say that the font size should be, for example, 80 pixel. So pixels are basically the small dots on the screen, so it just measures it. We can just say 80 centimeter, we can say 80 inches, but in the computer the best thing is mentioning the pixels, right? So let me just refresh this, so it's font size turned to 80 pixel. For example, if I want to say that the font weight should be bold, right? So I can just change this font to bold. It's already bold, so nothing to mention here. I can say for example, font weight 200, right? So its font weight will be changed to some thin thing because it's not much weighted here. So if we say 600, it will be bold, right? So these are some properties of CSS. There are many other properties, you can search for them on the internet. Okay, before closing, let me just mention something else here. For example, I want to add a heading. I do this and a class saying text red, right? So everything that have this text red class will have the red text, right? So I just say color red and I refresh this, so its color is turned to red. So if I want to change the text color of this table and this paragraph too, we just have to add the class and its text will turn to red. So you can play around by searching on the internet about some other properties. For example, we have a color here. We can add also borders, 1 pixel, solid green. So if I refresh it, it will have some green, but to see that we will have to remove the background because in the black we won't be able to see green clearly, right? So we have added a border, so we can just say 10 pixel. So it will have this 10 pixel border. So there are multiple other properties, you can search for them on the internet and you can play around with it. So it's better to practice it because without practicing, like, it's very hard to catch up with some programming stuff. So that's it for today's lecture. In the next lecture we will learn about how to add JavaScript or how to add functionality to our HTML and CSS. So thank you guys for your concentration. So let's meet in the next tutorial. Bye.